evening. Good evening,
Nice.
everybody. Welcome to Mad Realm's Vote to Kick, where we talk about keeping or kicking various things from the gaming industry. I'm your host, Malthanis, also known as Jim, and with me, my guest this week is Aaron, back from the Silver Wastes, where he loves sand.
Hi, everybody. You can't get rid of me. You can't get rid of me, guys.
One of the
So
founding
it's
members of Talking to
yeah.
Scrit. Good to have you back.
I keep coming back. It's always good to be back though. It's always good to be back.
It's good to have you back. So, tonight we are debuting a new layout, and you're probably wondering what the heck's going on with this big white circle over here. That is our data collection, which Deo, one of our producers behind the scenes, has so graciously created for us. For you in chat, there's a wonderful link for you. That is a live form, and you will see your responses fill in live during the show. What is our topic tonight? Our topic is ad blockers, and whether we should keep or kick them from the internet. And you're probably wondering, Jim, ad blockers aren't really gaming related, and I'm not gonna lie, I kind of used a little bit of tortured logic on this one.
Oh
A
boy.
lot. What's that?
Oh boy.
Well, so I saw this tweet a while ago in that the biggest mistake we made is basing the internet off of advertising revenue as its primary income. And that kind of resonated with me a little bit because I know I will not go to a website without an ad blocker turned on. And I'll get more into it when I have the pros section. But as it relates to gaming, a lot of content creators on YouTube and Twitch make advertising money. That lets them continue to be content creators and thus spreading awareness of video games. How many games are known because of, say, Markiplier? How big would Five Nights at Freddy's be if Markiplier hadn't gotten on, had Jacksepticeye gotten on with it? How big would a lot of games be without PewDiePie playing them on his stream? So,
Frickin' bread simulator.
what's that?
Frickin' bread simulator.
Oh my God, Goat Simulator for that matter.
Yeah.
So ads affect a lot with the gaming industry, especially with getting the word out for indie games. Which, considering the prevalence of the internet and publishing platforms, indie games are a huge part of gaming now. So that gets into the pros and cons of ad blockers. And since I am a gracious host, I will let my guest go first with cons. So, Aaron, take it away.
All right. So Jim has graciously brought me on the show this week to argue uh, against the idea of promoting blocking ads across the internet, right? So the first thing that popped into my mind is actually something that Jim already brought up in his little introductory thing there that kind of sparked the entire topic, is that the internet is built on ad revenue. And Jim kind of introduced that as a con. I almost see it as a pro in this situation because I don't see the internet growing at the exponential rate that it has if most of the content throughout it were locked behind X, Y, and Z paywalls, right? Because as we're starting to see in other industries right now, the more different paywalls you get, locking off different types of content, the more stagnated an industry becomes because people will just go with the best one, right? So with what advertising revenue allows us to do is it allows everybody to look at everything pretty much penalty free. I mean, you got to watch an ad, so I see it as kind of a tool for growth across the internet, a tool for everybody to get in on the ground floor, a tool for people who maybe can't afford to provide professional content or set up a business or stuff like that to get into the content creation spectrum and get things out there on the web. And it provides a support platform that we can all move forward on, that promotes accessibility, I guess, at the end of the day.
That's fair. And that's I say I don't go on a website because of advertisements. I don't go on websites without an ad blocker. Uh, all of those points are solid points, and when you're new to a site and you don't get like ad deals, you have Google AdSense. And that specifically is my rebuttal to this, is that that is the primary go-to for a lot of people doing advertisements. AdSense, I think there are some other advertising services that the names, I honestly, you can just say AdSense and people know exactly the kind of thing you're talking about. The issue with AdSense is the sheer number of ads that get thrown at it. And that is my pro to ad blocker. For the counter is that with AdSense, you have millions upon millions of ads being uploaded to AdSense a day. Anecdotal number. And there are points in time where I will turn off an ad blocker, go to a website just to make sure that it, like, to see if there's something wrong with it because I have ads blocked. And within seconds, I immediately get redirected to one of those fake websites that, you know, the FBI is watching me for something I did on my computer, or the IRS is going to be, you know, doing stuff. It's stuff like that. Also, we have 2 votes so far on our pie chart here. As you can see, we've got live updates. Blue is keep, red is kick. And that's primarily why I use ad blockers. The slightly less anecdotal evidence I have is at my company, I work in the IT department, when we implemented our antivirus, which has web protection, we were getting hundreds of thousands of hits for blocked categories of web content: pornography, sale of illegal substances, sales of weapons, gaming, everything, all over the place. And we're sitting there wondering to ourselves, what the hell is causing this? Because the people who were, you know, basically getting hits for pornography were just, it wasn't going to be them. Not because I know them well enough that they wouldn't be looking at it. It's, they don't have time to look at porn at work because they're too goddamn busy. So my sysadmin just pushed ad blockers out to all browsers that we had available in the company. And all of those hits went away. And that was all advertisements. So my issue with AdSense on the baseline level is the fact that it runs afoul bad actors, which need manual review that algorithms can't keep up with because people can always figure out the algorithm. And it's just, it's too hard to keep up with for preventing problems from a security standpoint. So ad blockers are actually more of a security thing in my eyes than just a, you know, I don't like being advertised to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I can definitely take your point there, because it is a huge security risk, right? There's a lot of, you know, you go to X, Y, and Z website to watch like your low key pirated anime episodes, right? And you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pop up ads for whatever, and you've got 90 million sidebar ads that are completely slogging your computer down and making your entire web browsing experience just an awful time. Yeah. And that's where I kind of think like maybe so maybe domain hosts could promote the idea of regulating AdSense application a little more. Because that's where like it would be on whoever's providing the advertising's end and whoever's hosting the domain's end to come to some sort of regulatory arrangement there, right? Because like I said, I feel like ad revenue is such a great thing that promotes free content enterprise that I wouldn't want to see it just go away wholesale, you know. But whereas you have a point also, it's used too heavy-handedly on way too many websites out there. So my kind of soft compromise, I guess, to your counterpoint would be to look into some way of standardizing and regulating how ads are promoted on websites.
I can agree with that. Yeah, that's I've in conversations about this previously with people all over the place. I've said that if a website tells me that they source all of their advertisements manually, you know, going back to the late 90s, early 2000s of the internet, where, you know, you had to submit your 3 different banner sizes and your links to a website in order for them to post them manually and have them like in a carousel or something. yeah, it'll look better now because we have better, HTML and CSS and all that. But yeah, I'd be completely willing to unblock a site if they did that.
Hmm. Yeah, and that's another kind of compromise that I came up with when I was, thinking about what I wanted to talk about on the show. Was obviously most ad blockers come with a whitelisting feature, right? So sites that you like, sites that you want to promote, sites that you want to provide revenue for, you can always whitelist. So at the end of the day, but that falls on the individual, and it's not up to the content provider. It's not up to the advertiser. It's not up to the domain host. So it's sort of a compromise for it, but it also is up to a matter of opinion on the person doing the web browsing. So it's not quite a blanket compromise, but it's an available option in that respect.
Right. Going to chat. Um, let's see here. Wispy Gem brings up hosting costs, which Deo counters with that hosting is cheap when you're not trying to store things, which I 100% agree with. We are currently dealing with having to pay storage costs and backup costs for multiple terabytes of data at my company.
Yep.
And that comes along with, since we are legally on the hook for a lot of that data, it has to be backed up and geo-redundant. So if an earthquake strikes a data center, we still have that data.
I have the same issue where I work. We have tons of data that we have to back up, and it's this ever mounting pile.
And then QED brings up that none of the given options fit, which I know keep or kick is kind of a blanket. However, that's why we have the show, so we can talk about it. And then, if you feel like tweeting about it, you can respond to the Twitter post. I'm going to be posting the link there for people on Twitter to weigh in, and then, you can leave your thoughts there with the response posts. And let's see here. Informer Group's research arm Ovum believes if publishers continue to respond to the ad blocking threat with measured approaches, by 2020 revenue losses from ad blocking will be 10.5 billion in the US. And let's see here.
That honestly, that doesn't surprise me. Most people I know run an ad blocker. Most people do. So that absolutely doesn't surprise me at all.
Well, you got to figure part of the problem was auto playing ads, videos, ads that pop up and take up your whole screen, malicious ads.
Yeah.
There's a security risk.
Yeah.
And Wispy Gem brings up, is the loss to companies like Google providing access, or to the advertisers from loss of sales for ads not driving sales? That's a good counterpoint to that.
Mm-hmm.
I know that advertising is actually one of the things that tends to be the first thing to go away when a company starts cutting costs.
And the main reason for that is because it's so hard to quantify whether it's working or not, right? Obviously, it wouldn't be a multi-billion-dollar industry if it just straight up didn't work. But there are good ads and bad ads and everything in between. There are effective ads, ineffective ads. So it's such a difficult field to quantify the success of. That, I think that's why you're going to see it cut in a lot of budget cutting scenarios, because they're going to go for things that are assured first, right?
Right. Yeah. Now, QED brings up that 70 million users alone using AdBlock Pro in the US, and that was in 2016. I don't know if anybody is familiar with AdBlock Pro. They recently introduced a premium ad service where they as a company can make money by telling advertisers to, hey, pay us, and after we vet your ad, we'll let it through our ad blocker. Which, now that I stop and think about it, is not terrible, though you are handing your gatekeeping methods over to another person. But
go ahead.
But considering that they are the gatekeeper to around 70 million users, assuming that there's no up or down trending in the past 2 years, that's possibly a lot more hits for your advertising to come through.
It is. Yeah, it's and obviously it's their prerogative as a private company to do that,
right,
if they want to. It's also something that could drive users away, though. So
That was honestly that actually drove me to another AdBlock service, because at the start of AdBlock Pros, allowing ads to come through AdBlock, it was not very good.
Hmm.
So there were still malicious ads coming. Like, that's honestly my biggest problem, is malicious advertisements, and
Yep.
it's just there are so very many.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And that's like, I can't really, I obviously can't counter the security method, right? Because not everybody's a cybersecurity expert. And running a simple free program is one of the best ways you can combat that, because not every antivirus is going to have every solution to the stuff that creeps up on you in the internet, especially if you're on a Windows machine. Um, so the cybersecurity risk is obviously the big one, and then I that my main counterpoint to that would be the compromise with the whitelisting. I think the whitelist is honestly the best kind of meet in the middle in this scenario. But one thing that it's not really a counterpoint, but I think it's a good thing to bring up in the discussion, is that I think and I'm coming at this more from not just a content creator spectrum, like people on YouTube, people on Twitch, things like that, but people running websites, whether it be for X, Y, or Z industry, whatever. I think their content being freely available and supported by ads allows them to, again, this is everybody in the web space doing whatever. I think it allows people to be more experimental with whatever content they're uploading and promoting, and I think it allows people to be more diverse with whatever content they're uploading and promoting. For example, if you are a gaming YouTube channel and you are on Patreon, you are beholden to your patrons to a certain extent to provide content that they want to watch, because you need them to keep paying for it. Whereas if you are supported by ads, yes, you might get less ad views on a video that your people might not want, but at the same time, you also have a chance to pull in a new side of the audience for people who might be interested in that other stuff. And I think freely available things through ads promote that better than content that's gated by paywalls. So that's and that obviously that was just one analogy, but I think it could apply to work that's freely available throughout the web on ad supported websites in general.
That's fair. I think one of the other things that and this is more a con to AdSense in general and other ad systems. Yeah, and QED brings up a good point that I will get to in a second. AdSense, which if you talk to a bunch of, if you've seen the YouTube videos about the adpocalypse, however many, whatever number we're on at this point.
Yeah, right.
Unless you are someone who is doing daily content with million plus views, you're really not pulling that much money from AdSense.
Oh yeah. The revenue share is very small.
Which, it's not super great, and that leads into QED brings back to my security issue. So the problem is ads seemingly require more and more views for the same profit, because in the beginning days of YouTube, when you could monetize a video, people were hitting the boom and making a decent chunk of change off of it.
Yep.
So,
but now the industry's saturated, so they can't pay out as much money per person. Yeah.
So as a revenue source for people starting out, it's not really as strong, which is why you saw the surge of Coffee, of Patreon. I know there's at least one or two other services that are similar to those, but I can't bring them up off the top of my head. Because then you've got, people want you to continue making the thing that you're making because they are subscribed to you effectively.
Yes.
So,
and I mean, and in that same regard, to counter my own point that I just made, fun stuff, guys. It's a lot of people are going to see much more advantage to a steady income through Patreon, for example, providing content that they know people will watch, rather than trying to branch out further. So even though I believe that free ad-supported content allows creators to branch out more, At the same time, a lot of creators are going to be in favor of going the safer route through a more direct type of income.
Right. I mean, it's one thing with Patreon is you need to kind of get your audience first.
Yep. Yeah.
So, to go to QED's point, as I pointed out during the last show, which is Adblockers 1, which I'm not going to publish because I feel it had terrible production values, which is entirely my fault. As I pointed out during the last show, ad services need to be regulated and controlled, especially with malware, phishing scams, and viruses. Yeah, that's pretty much my entire point of why I use an ad blocker.
Yeah, and I think we did touch on that near the beginning of the show, that we'd like to see more regulation just between the people, facilitating services on both sides. Again, that would be a great compromise to this. Like I mentioned before, whitelisting is a great compromise for this. But yeah, my main side of the argument, I'd say, is just for accessibility, experimentation, and diversity. I feel, and another bullet point I have here that kind of encompasses all that is that if you can make content free, it's always better for the consumer for that content to be free. What ads on the internet do is allow the internet to continue to be a free source of entertainment, of education, of research, of information, all that sort of stuff. I think there are obviously other ways to do that. You got donations, you got, donations is pretty much the only other way. But you got self-funded things. Like there are other ways to do it. But I think ad revenue is one of the most dependable ways to keep content free. And like I said, if you can make it free, it's always advantageous to make it free for the sake of accessibility and diversity.
Yeah, that's. I think we've pretty much whittled this down. So again, I mean, there's only so many things we can talk about, right?
Yeah, I mean, my closing statement on it would be that, and guys, use your whitelist. Essentially, use your whitelist on your ad blocker. That's
kind of one of those things where I kind of wish I could whitelist a channel on YouTube, but since
each video is its own URL, yeah.
I kind of wish I could whitelist like the person I'm watching and then all of their videos, but YouTube doesn't have structure like that.
Yeah, that's annoying. It's definitely annoying.
That's it's a lot of talk about legacy programming, and I'm not going to get into that because I'll be here all night for a whole nother show. So, ladies and gentlemen, again, I am going to put the link for the forum. For the web form for Vote and Keep or Kick for ad blockers in chat. And it'll also be in the description of the video for those of you on YouTube. Feel free to leave your comments below. And also for those of you on Twitch or Twitter, there'll be a tweet about this on Mad Realms at MAAD Realms. You can talk about it there. We'd be happy to talk to you about it there. Or also in the YouTube comments. I have been your host, Malthanis. You can find me on Twitter at MalthanisMMO. Aaron, my guest today, you can find him on Twitch and Twitter at Guild Wars Monk, where you can follow him for all kinds of fashion tips in Guild Wars 2, and also his opinions on hot dogs on sticks.
Oh, dude, paddles. Oh, man. Yeah.
Hey.
I mean, there's your next topic for Vote to Kick right there.
What, great weapon skins or
great sword paddles in video games.
Jeez. That'll be it. So thank you everyone for joining. I hope you have a fantastic evening, and we will see you next time.
See you later, guys.
And we're back. We're back to the end card. I'm still ad-libbing the end song. I don't know why.
Oh, you don't have music for it yet?
I do, but I ad-libbed it the first time, and Tavik is like, keep it! And I'm like, okay.
I'm okay with this.
So I'm still ad-libbing the end song.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll just call it there.